everybody.
Hello, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate you doing that. And thanks for joining us last week and hearing a little bit about where we came from and what some of the things, some of the lessons that we have learned through the years and sharing with them, and all the comments and all the interactions. So we thank you for that, and hope that this week will be valuable as well. John, do you have anything to say before we get started?
Oh, I just wanted to say, thank you for showing up. We certainly appreciate it. You add value to us just by being here, and and that matters truly. So thank you.
Yep, definitely. All right. So with that, we will, as soon as I get my screen to behave here, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. So just once again, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to Deservingly You. This is our little weekly show that we're putting together. We're so honored to have you here with us in this moment, and from this, for some of you, it's like a new becoming. And this is the space where you actually get to be yourself. And one of the things that we want to give you a heads up on is that there may be some things tonight that we talk about that might stir some things up for you. And it's okay, because this space is actually meant to feel like an exhale, like a deep breath, and then letting it out. And there is no pressure to fix, and there's also no demand for you to change overnight. What this is going to be about is actually a chance to notice, as well as a chance to get curious. And what really matters is that you're here and that you're showing up.
Yes, thank you, Shannon. One thing I'd like to mention is that please have a notebook ready, for future reference, and feel free to be active in the chat. We certainly appreciate any interaction. And like Shannon said, what we're about to explore can feel very sensitive, and tender. And so you'll see parts of yourself here, not because you're broken, but because you survived, right? And now maybe you're ready to live differently. We've both walked the path, wondering, why do I keep reacting this way? Or why does this moment feel so personal? And most importantly, is it just me? Yeah, we've walked through a lot of these same patterns ourselves, and we created this conversation based on a training by our mentor, Brendan Burchard, to offer a bit of light on what can this feel like, like a very personal, very lonely journey. But this is for those moments where something small hits hard, and suddenly you're in a spiral.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that you may not know like the official name for that. You just know that you get caught and you feel stuck, and you're wondering, is this just me? Am I overreacting? You're not overreacting. What you're experiencing really, really makes sense. And so with that, let's go ahead. Do you have anything else, John?
Oh, let's begin.
All right.
Get right into it. Thank you, Shannon.
Yep.
Yeah.
So here's where we're going to go tonight. We are going to name a pattern, and that pattern, what we call it, is ZAPS. And it shows up in those moments when something small actually feels really, really big. And when we explore the why, then all of this makes much more sense. And when you do this, it's how you can gently shift from reacting to things to actually having an intention with a new framework. And that framework is called MAPS. So again, we want to remind you and say up front that what you're experiencing totally makes sense, and that you're not broken, you're not too much, and you're not alone. So let's introduce you to that first framework of ZAPS, and then a little bit later we'll shift into the MAPS version.
Indeed, Shannon. Thank you. All right. Well, ZAPS, like she said, is a framework that we use to describe what happens when your survival brain kicks in. Even if your environment looks safe right now, your body and mind might still be operating from what happened, in the past. And it is what happens when your mind gets stuck in that survival mode, even long after the actual danger is gone. And ZAPS are survival patterns. They're like mental landmines that it's wired into your nervous system. Not because you're weak, but because you've adapted over time. And it's what happens when everything starts to feel personal and inescapable. So ZAPS, the acronym ZAPS, Z-A-P-S, it stands for, the Z is zooming in, and the A is applying it to self, so yourself, and then the P was pattern looping, just something over and over, and the S, storyline hijacking. So let's walk through each one individually. So you'll probably recognize parts of yourself, as we move through it.
Yep. And so, like John said with the zooming in, something can happen, a look, a tone, a situation, and it feels like the world actually narrows in, and your brain is locking on, and nothing else seems to matter in that moment except for that one thing. You feel like you're under threat, and you may not even realize how much your nervous system is doing to actually try to protect you. And everything else seems to fade into the background. And it's like that tunnel vision. And I had an experience like that just a few months ago when John and I were in temporary housing, and the landlord decided not to honor the previous agreement with the previous landlord, and so decided to evict us. And so with that, I ended up feeling myself really, really zooming in on this situation. And it was high stress and really emotional and mental.
So this here, what she described, it's your brain doing what it was trained to do, defend. Okay, but definitely it isn't the same as living. Zooming in feels like control, but it can also become a cage, having you like trapped. Suddenly this one thing becomes the whole story, right? You feel urgency, pressure, and panic. Even if it doesn't show on the outside, you're lit up on the inside like an alarm.
Yeah. So if there's anybody in the chat that has experienced something like this where they've zoomed in, go ahead and share it in the chat. And we might have a quiet group tonight. Maybe we'll see. What about you, John? Can you think of any time where you were really, really zooming in?
Well, sure. Yeah. Definitely. Like at work, I can definitely, at times I've made it all about me, and where it didn't show on the outside so much, but on the inside, I was just, stressed out. The cortisol was flowing, and like I said, you're just lit up like an alarm on the inside, and it's easy to continue like that and not realize the effects that it's having on your body. Yeah. But once you become aware, then you're able to control it a little bit, or to draw back from that.
Yeah. You'd made a comment in your response to about making it about yourself. And so in this framework, what happens after you zoom in, your brain actually gets busy because it's really trying to make sense of that feeling. And so you personalize what has happened and you start thinking, well, of course I feel this way. They probably meant to hurt me. Like when I think about the landlords, they were doing this to me on purpose and they did it because of me. It always happens to me, some of those phrases that you end up saying. And so what's happening is your brain is actually trying to justify the emotion by attaching a meaning to it. And before you know it, what that situation, that tone, that thought, it becomes about you, even if it never was, but you end up attaching that meaning to it. And this isn't because you're trying to be dramatic, but it helps for you to have that emotion make sense. And it can feel personal because that's the way that you're able to protect your heart. And it tries to build that storyline that's going to justify that ache. You want to be able to have a reason for the feeling that you're experiencing. And so you have a tendency to make it personal because that pain without any meaning can feel like it's too hard to hold.
Thank you, Shannon. Yeah. And, to add to that, making something personal isn't about ego. It's about emotional logic. And your brain would rather assign blame than sit in ambiguity. So the P, pattern looping. This, now you're stuck, right? You replay it over and over again, rewrite it, you refeel it, what you wish you'd said, what you think they meant, what it must mean for you over and over. And, and your brain, your mind just won't let go when you're in this space. You rehearse different endings. You try to fix it in your head. The moment becomes a movie, right? And you're just trapped in these reruns and you're not sure how to turn it off.
Yeah. And if I go back to the situation with the landlords and what they were doing with us, it was like I played it over and over and over in my head. I was frustrated, I was angry, I was scared. I ended up like talking to a lot of people about it too. I couldn't shut up about what they were doing with us, and it really it took I wasn't focusing on anything else except for what had happened. And besides all of the emotion, and it's annoying when you can't shut this off in your brain, it's also exhausting because you can't stop that spinning and you keep getting stuck in the past. And when this happens too, your energy is sapped and you don't have joy. Your joy is stolen, and that looping, it might be whispering, this is actually who you are, even though that is not true. And then, so after the looping and after it keeps going around and around, this is where it gets personal, and you actually end up creating a storyline and forget that the storyline is actually optional. And if the story it tells, it actually is very unkind, and it starts to feel like the truth. It's that moment you actually take it on and it becomes your identity. And it's no longer about this one thing. It actually becomes about you. And you believe the pain instead of challenging that pattern. Now, like with me, with the apartment thing, I was the victim, with what they were doing. And so I played that loop. And then the story that I ended up telling myself, was that I was a victim of these horrible landlords.
Thank you, Shannon. And ZAPS, it rewrites your identity around pain instead of progress. It doesn't just analyze the moment, it attacks your identity. But here's the secret: you're not the story, you're the storyteller. You get to start to build a story around the moment. You begin to see everything through a different lens, and you can remind yourself that your story is allowed to evolve over time.
And so in this pattern of the ZAPS, if you see yourself, know that it is not failure. These are tools that actually have helped you to survive. But now you do have the opportunity to learn something new. And so the stuff that we shared, it may have felt familiar. Feel free to take a breath if you need to. Once again, you are not broken. You're actually brilliant, because ZAPS is one of those things that actually helps you survive. And if you are here today and it has done its job.
Yes, thank you, Shannon. Yes, and that's so true. ZAPS is brilliant and brutal at the same time. See, it kept you safe before, but it's not designed to help you thrive. Okay, but now you get the shift, because your life isn't a loop, it's a map.
Yep. So anybody else, can anybody relate to some of the things that we were saying with zooming in and zapping? Ruby says yes. Hi, Dallas. Leonard, damaged but not destroyed. Okay. Thank you, Alora, for the recommendation of hitting the like button. Appreciate it. And Joe and Fran, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Indeed.
So if ZAPS is all about survival, what happens after ZAPS? Because you don't just cope, you actually move. You start a movement, and that movement creates new momentum. And when you actually turn your reactions into an intention, that's where MAPS actually comes in. So if ZAPS is that old survival script, MAPS is that new movement forward.
Very good. Yes. And MAPS, it's your invitation to realignment, where your energy works with you and not against you. Where you stop just noticing the pattern and start redirecting it. The shift just isn't just about noticing the pattern. It's about thinking positively. Okay, it's about reclaiming your power. MAPS helps you respond with intention instead of reaction, from coping to living.
Yeah, I want to highlight that a little bit more too, John, where you mentioned that about redirecting. So with ZAPS, part of the skill is actually recognizing that that's where you're at. And so what MAPS can help you to do is not only notice the pattern, but you're going to take that and you're going to start redirecting the way that you're, instead of reacting, you're going to be directing. And so you actually become that director of your movie instead of some actor in a movie.
So true. And just becoming aware of all this is like the first step, because unless you notice what's going on, you're not able to redirect anything. So just becoming aware is huge.
Yeah. So let's dive in a little bit deeper.
Sure. All right. So let's see. So okay, I got it. My screen wasn't cooperating right there. I got it. All right. So MAPS, the acronym MAPS, the M stands for mindset shift. You zoom out and you focus on what you're growing into. Okay. And the A is alignment with encouragement. And you're able to catch the critic and choose compassion. Okay. And you're able to do this in real time. That's certainly progress. And the P stand for progress through integration. You're able to celebrate your wins and build momentum as time goes. And then the S, step into purpose. You live from alignment, generate meaning daily. And this is the framework for people who are done shrinking and ready to stretch.
Mm-hmm. It's like it's a permission slip for you to reclaim your voice and your body as well as your vision. So let's dive into these a little bit further.
Indeed.
So John mentioned that the M stands for mindset shift. And so it's, instead of narrowing in on when something happens, you actually take the balcony seat. You go to the balcony, you take a breath and ask yourself what actually matters here. Now, you don't have to stay in the weeds when you're doing this. You actually choose the lens that you're going to be looking through. So you're going to be shifting your focus. And when you take this step back and you get that view, you actually get to see the full picture, not just the parts that you're feeling the pain or feeling the anger or feeling the fear. And so by doing that, you actually get the opportunity to recognize that old pattern and have the opportunity to interrupt it. And you get to, like we mentioned, with shifting that focus, you get to shift it from telling yourself what's wrong to what you're growing into. And then by redirecting, you actually, instead of chasing that control, you're going to anchor into clarity.
And this doesn't mean ignoring pain, okay? It means choosing to see more than just pain. And you get to choose what matters most. Instead of focusing in on the threat, you connect to what really matters. You reclaim your perspective, and not because it's easy, but because it's yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's time to catch that harsh voice with the A in MAPS, align with encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of defaulting to the critic, you choose compassion and swap it and trade criticism for kindness, because you deserve to be kind to yourself. And respond with, not today. You're doing better than you think. Okay. You remind yourself that the zoomed in version, this isn't the only option for you. Because encouragement isn't weakness. It's how you build inner safety. Kindness really counts here. But, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes work. And that's what we're getting into here. And you're allowed to treat yourself like someone who matters, someone worth supporting, because you are. You definitely are. So,
Yep.
Yeah, just been able to recognize unfair self-talk, that voice in your head that isn't truth. That's conditioning, that happened over time. And you're able to interrupt the blame spiral, right? You stop making yourself the problem, and you get to speak to yourself like someone worth rooting for, and because you are, again, you certainly are worth that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that, Leonard, what you were saying. One of the things I know for me, like in my when I first started on my healing journey, one of the biggest things that I did was that criticism. It's like I was really mean to myself. And so learning how to stop those voices and recognize that it's unfair. That what you're saying when you're mean to yourself, it's very unfair, and you wouldn't talk to most people out there the way that you talk to yourself. And so you must learn, if you're going to heal, you must learn to be able to speak to yourself in a loving way and know that you're someone that is worth rooting for. And you're very special, but it can take some time to learn that. Sorry, John.
No, it's okay. I just want to touch briefly on what you just said. Being kind to yourself, speaking kind to yourself, your subconscious doesn't know. I mean, just takes it as absolute fact, and your body responds in kind, even if you don't believe it in your head, consciously. So
Yeah.
that's all I want to say on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so now the practicing integration, this is where we can really make it real, and it's where those changes become embodied. It's not just something that you know in your head, it's something that you actually start living. And when you can start letting these shifts show up in your daily choices. Now, this can show up, for example, like in a decision that you make, a boundary that you set, even a breath that you take. And when you do this and you start to feel these things, you can start feeling a change in your nervous system. And you also will begin to start building that trust in yourself again. And this is a huge, huge thing for those who have left a high control group, is to actually build that trust in yourself. But when you begin to practice showing up as the version of you that can see the bigger picture and doesn't need to prove anything, that's when your growth can start expanding even more. And you actually get to the point where you don't just understand your new truths, you're living them. But here's the thing, is like, it doesn't have to be on a huge matter. It can be in these micro moments, and it's in ways that you are having new reactions. You may speak just a little bit different, and you may even walk or hold yourself just in micro moments. When you start feeling that change in your body, it doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect in any of this. But if those of you who were with us last week, if you remember where we talked about presence, this is part of that, in becoming present and really, really being able to notice and feel it throughout your body. So you start to speak those wins. And here's the thing. It, like the slide says, it's like, name your wins and say them out loud, because your progress deserves to be witnessed. The stuff that you have been through and the micro improvements, it deserves to be witnessed. And so when you do that too, like John had mentioned, your subconscious, it hears you and it helps that to sink in. So you're not just learning. This is actually ways that you can start becoming. And then from there, from there, you start having a level of a compound effect. And each step ends up building more and more trust in who you are now and who you're becoming.
And now, and this, we get to the S on this one, step into purpose. And this is where everything changes. You walk like you belong. Okay. You show up like your presence makes a difference and your voice matters, because it does, like was mentioned before. And you start to build a life that reflects your values, not just your fears. Okay. And this is where your exit becomes your emergence, right? And this is your exit from shame. Okay. Because you no longer shrink to stay safe. You begin to move like someone who knows they belong. And your entrance is legacy, okay? And you don't wait for validation. You move into someone who's already free. And when you're there in that space, you let purpose lead you, not pressure, right? It's no longer about proving yourself to anyone. It's about becoming into who you are, your authentic self, okay? And then, with that, you're able to take aligned action, right, to that authentic self. And each step reflects who you're choosing to be, not what someone else expected you to be, right, or tried to mold you, or did, in fact, did. And then, with this, you start to generate meaning, not just momentum, You don't chase purpose because you're able to create it, you know? And yeah, Shannon?
So I'm curious if any, I love what Dallas said, that we need encouragement and need to give ourselves permission to be kind to ourselves at times, because we're worth it. And you do need to treat yourself, what Thrifty was saying, treat yourself better than others have treated you. And you're right, it absolutely can be hard to learn if you've never had the example or never felt that love, but it can be done. That's absolutely true. So how about purpose? Does anybody out there feel like did this relate to anybody with stepping into purpose? It's a weird feeling. It is such a strange when you're like when you've been a robot for so long and you actually start experiencing that. Thank you, Joe and Fran. Ruby. I can see that you're creating your purpose as well. But life is like, when you're in alignment with that, it is such an amazing feeling to be you just experience life in a different way. I know for me, it's like it was almost like I could see colors better. I could see, I could feel things deeper and stuff. So purpose is really, really powerful. And we did touch on it again last week. So those of you who didn't join, we feel free to watch our episode from last week where we talked about how it is one of those key tools to help you not be stuck. But let's talk about what can happen. We want to introduce you now to a couple of the who's in your head. And we've got Adeline and we've got Aaron. Well, that's what we're going to call them. That's what we're naming them. And they're actually the voices behind ZAPS and MAPS. These are those two inner voices in your head. Now, Adeline, she's that ZAPS voice, that fear-based inner critic, and she's critical, and she's fearful, and it's urgent. And she's the one that's going to be telling you that they're judging you and that, oh, look at there, you've messed it up again. And then Aaron, he's got the MAPS voice. He's encouraging and he's gentle and he's grounded. And he's the one who notices how far that you have come. And he's going to remind you that you've really grown and that you've grown a lot.
Thank you for that, Shannon. And both of these voices, they live inside you. All right. The question is, who gets the mic? Which one will you hand it to?
Yeah. So okay. So I'm really curious of you guys, who speaks most? Who do you give the mic most to? Is it Aaron or is it Adeline? MAPS. Okay. Great, Ruby. Aaron? That's awesome. Yep, we do. We definitely need more Aaron. JG, Adeline. Okay. And neither one of them is wrong. Like we said, ZAPS was a survival tool that we use. So it's not wrong. If Adeline's the one that's showing up, it's okay. It absolutely is okay. But so now what? What do we do with this? Where do we go? So one of the things we want to invite you this week is to start small and just notice. And if you feel a trigger, ask yourself, is this the ZAPS voice or is it the MAPS voice? Which one of those is speaking? And take a moment to pause and ask yourself, what else could be true?
And then to add to that, you could choose One, MAPS, aligned micro action, something small but aligned. And it could be resting, speaking up, not explaining yourself, anything that tends to affirm the person that you're becoming, that you're growing into. And just one decision that reflects who that represents and who you're becoming, like I said. Yeah.
And like John said, it can be something really, really small. It can be something as simple as taking a breath and breathing in, who you want to be. Those 3 words, do you guys remember the 3 words that you picked last week? Even taking a breath and thinking about those 3 words can help you to shift from the ZAPS to the MAPS. So one of the things that I also want to invite you this week is to reflect on, if I let MAPS guide me today, I would, and then fill in the blank. Now, this doesn't have to be answered perfectly, but I do want to invite you to show up honestly, because that was one of the things that I know for my journey too. When I went on, one of the biggest things was learning how to be authentic with myself. And because I lied to myself all over the place, but it wasn't until I really started being truthful with myself that I was able to get through those next steps. And then those and micro steps like this, just paying attention, just having it come to your mind and being able to recognize them is a huge step. So that's pretty much what we had for you this evening. And we're going to open it up to the space for questions. If anybody wants to come on screen, we're going to take you guys one at a time, and you can ask a question, and we are going to do our absolute very best to answer the question. And then once you're done with your question, we'll have you come off the stage and let the next person come on, because that way that person can have the attention and get their questions answered, and we're not getting distracted as well. So I know this is a little bit different than what some of the other channels are doing, but it's a format that John and I are really familiar with the coaching that we're with. And we've seen how powerful it is. So just wanted to bring it to you guys as well. And so the other thing too is next week we are going to be bringing another awareness topic and recognize some of those patterns that keep you stuck. So does anybody have any questions about ZAPS or MAPS or anything in between that they would like to ask? So John, what was one of the biggest shifts that you had in regards to doing something like this with the zooming in versus like taking a step back and looking at the big picture?
I'm not sure if this is what you're looking for, but this is what's been resting on my mind just in the last few minutes when we talked about purpose. Where, I felt a huge, zap 2 years ago when my son passed away. And then it wasn't until sometime later that it actually helped me align with my purpose. It wasn't consciously done, but because I was able to do that, the suffering did not continue, as soon as because it got me to where I'm at, right, where we're at right now with helping other people, and it added meaning to that. Now, although I took some time, some months to grieve, and I still am, but I'm not suffering because of it. You know what I mean? And what it came to mind, or what comes to mind, is that being part of that organization and everything that I went through because of it, and am going through as we speak, the shunning and losing friends and whatnot, and the whole just trying to figure out a new belief system. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's because I'm using it to find strength, and so there is no suffering to speak of.
I think one of the things as an observer in your life is because you were able to do that and like step back and zoom out instead of staying zoomed in. I think that helped you stay sober as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I didn't have to cover up anything or stuff it, suppress any feelings, emotions. I was just able to respond authentically instead of react with impulse and emotion. And that would be to drink or do drugs again, Yeah. And that just was not an option. I mean, it was, but it just was not a thought, I should say.
Well, yeah. I know one of the things for me, we're here on this channel right now because I chose not to stay zoomed in, because after we left the watchtower and stuff, I was so focused on the relationship with my family, and not that is not important. That's the other thing, is like when you're zooming in on something, it doesn't mean that it's not important, but it's just by zooming out, it's taking another perspective. And so we wouldn't be here in this space right now. We wouldn't be sharing the lessons and stuff that we have learned on our crazy, crazy, crazy journeys if we hadn't decided to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. I looked at the bigger picture with, do I protect my sister by not being authentically myself and sharing that we're not going back to the watchtower? Do I protect her and stay zoomed in on that? Or do I take a step back and really listen to the calling that we've got to be able to help other people? So Jeannie says, my biggest shift was judging unmarried couples who practiced intimacy. I felt that they were sinful. That mindset stayed in my brain for so many years after not having anything to do with the organization. Oh, I don't think that you were I wouldn't call yourself mean. You just had a different perspective at that point, Jeannie.
Yes.
And there may have been, there's a lot of things that we end up doing when we are zoomed in that we would choose differently.
Yeah.
So definitely.
One thing I wanted to say that came to mind while you were speaking, Shannon, was that everything in this world and this, universe is energy, and whatever you focus on is what's going to expand. Mm-hmm. So if you're focused on the problem, whatever that is for you, and that's all you can think about, it's not going to solve anything, or it's not going to shrink that issue or put it in place. Mm-hmm. It's just going to continue to get bigger. But if you're more focused on the solution, then the solution will expand and get, and things will, iron out. Even if it's just 60-40, mm-hmm. Over time, it'll iron itself out.
Your brain wants to find an answer, just like we were talking about, like with it wants to attach meaning and stuff. And so it wants to find an answer. So if you have a goal that you want to work towards, and you look at that, the biggest thing is making sure that you're looking at those, so that you give your subconscious and your mind an opportunity to be able to work on those. So
indeed.
Well, it looks like we've got a very shy group tonight, and that's okay. It totally is okay. So hopefully we'll have some topics that make sense in the future. A couple of them that we are in the upcoming months. Actually, we have somebody that, oh, hi, King Tony. It's good to see you.
Hi. Yeah.
We do have she's actually my sister. I was trying to say, how do I describe her? She's my sister-in-law, and she's actually a certified sound bath practitioner. And so in the upcoming months, we're actually going to have her come in and talk about sound baths, and we're going to look for opportunities to incorporate the sound baths into the presentation. And so that we've got a question. Great. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi.
Hi. Oh, we lost her.
Well, hopefully maybe we'll get her back.
Yep.
Before I forget, I wanted to say that if ever you guys have thoughts on any of our previous episodes, you could email us with questions that may not come to mind now. But if you review your notes, say in a few days or next week or next year, it doesn't matter. Just reach out and please feel free to with any questions later. Yeah.
Looks like Wally joined us too. Hey,
Wally.
Sherry. Hey, what question did you have?
Not really questions. I make mostly comments about this completely non-biblical religion. I just like to expose it for what it really is.
Well, the space that we've got for here is actually for questions.
Okay.
That's what we're wanting to do on this channel. But definitely honor what you're doing.
Great. So what is the topic? Because I just got in. So what's the topic we're discussing?
So we discussed about how zooming in on certain things, how that can stop you, and it can actually keep you stuck. And so different techniques to help you refocus and take on different perspectives to actually help you move forward.
Gotcha.
We were talking about the ZAPS and the MAPS acronym. ZAPS standing for zooming in, like Shannon mentioned. How it's a survival pattern. Then the A is applying it to yourself. P, pattern looping. The thing is just going over and over. Storyline hijacking. With that's the ZAPS, and feel free to watch the recording to get the details on those. Yeah. And then MAPS is just a mindset shift. aligning with your with encouragement, progress through integration, and stepping into your purpose. In a nutshell there for you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I can get my comments to post. So I know there's a lot of brainwashing in this completely non-biblical religion. I think that it's a stronghold of the Satan, and that once they get their claws in you, it's really hard to sort of let go of the incessant brainwashing. We are the truth. We have the truth. Like that guy on Light Over Dark Ministry points out.
Yeah, definitely. And so for John and I, what has helped us immensely is doing our own personal development and learning different techniques so that we can stop some of those patterns, because like what you just said can be looked at as a pattern. And so being able to identify those patterns so that you can disrupt them and shift onto something else.
Yeah. And it could happen, sooner than later. Our last meeting was not even a year ago. And,
Wow.
and because of our personal development that we were into a year and a half, even before that, we were able to draw from all that experience and be able to back away, maybe and become unemotionally attached, maybe a little bit sooner than we would have otherwise. Definitely. And that's why, we're in this space pretty quickly. Yeah.
So y'all just left the religion, right? You didn't get disfellowshipped or anything?
No, not disfellowship. I started recognizing things, red flags, over 10 years ago. But I pretty much dismissed them, and I stayed in that space, to keep Shannon safe. But then things just came to a head, and here we are.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that tell you, when you sort of have that little gut feeling that something ain't right, you really need to listen to it. Because, I had like an almost audible whisper, are you sure this is the truth or they have the truth? And it kept repeating over and over. I walked out of one of those things and never went back.
Yeah, good for you. It takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. And what I heard a really interesting comment today too that I think is really, really powerful. And it was true. Some of you will probably go, what the heck does this have to do with cancer again? But one of the things that I learned on the cancer journey was that what's important is your roadmap. And so whether people however they end up leaving the organization is such a personal thing. And so the person that I was listening to today had talked about, the most important thing is that they got out. The way that they got out was doesn't really matter, and it may be very personal to that person. So we've heard of a lot of people who have decided to disassociate, and we've heard of people that have faded. We've heard of people that ended up being disfellowshipped and chose to be disfellowshipped and those types of things, or not chose. The biggest thing and so once again, if we apply the framework that we showed tonight on the maps, is actually taking a step back, and the biggest picture is actually getting out. And now that it's out, it's like, what do we do to move forward and to actually be pick up the cords from it, and to be able to have a life that we're living that is our own. So Sherry,
not under the control of a bunch of self-exalted, I call them schmucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Sherry, for your comment and for your question. Does anybody else have any questions?
Good.
Yeah, Sherry, thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
I saw a comment on there by somebody that asked if we were both inactive. Were you speaking? Were you talking to us? Here we go, Jeannie Feaster. I was trying to join the chat.
Yeah. It's interesting because I'm choosing to shift the language for me. So for example, I want to be an activator. I want to be able to help people to discover who they are and to recognize that they are deserving and that they deserve to be who they are, and to build and develop whatever that is, and to become the best that they can be. And so there's going to be occasions where you're going to hear John and I reference that we are XGWs, but for the most part, we want to be people that actually that actually can help people to move forward. All right, Wally, I get a question pretty often, but curious how someone else would answer. How do you learn to trust your reality? For instance, people go from believing in a chest of nonsense to being 100% convinced. So I know for me, there was a time, so now I'm going to pull from the domestic violence story.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time for me in trusting myself that I didn't believe anything. I didn't believe anything that I was saying to myself, but I was seeing a counselor, and I did work with some amazing people. And I learned to be able to trust them. And so there was a period of time when I was building that trust and trusting that reality that was in there. I trusted their opinion, and so I borrowed it, if that makes sense. I borrowed it for a little while until I could, because in a way it kind of felt like you were in a swimming pool and you couldn't touch the bottom. And so so it took a while to build that, and it took practice, but I trusted the people that I trusted. Does that make sense, Wally?
And for me, what comes to mind, I'll probably think of something later, but my reality, having come out of this organization, is I don't even know what's true or what's not true. I'm in a space where I'm building a new belief system, and I'm in no hurry to do that, and I'm comfortable in that space. I don't have to know what the truth is, if there is even such a thing. There's a lot I'm just unsure of and this is one piece that I'm using. This here is about social learning for me, and this one small piece, and I'm just taking in, and Wally, watching you and other YouTube channels. I'm just taking things in. I'm not believing everything I hear, but things that make sense, I'm looking into, and so I'm kind of molding my new reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not really trusting. I'm not anything right away, as if that makes sense.
It's like, it also right now too is like being really curious and finding out what other people are, what they do share, and seeing what kind of sticks. The biggest, I think, one of the things too, though, is learning how to recognize when there's emotion that is attached to it, and being able to listen to that emotion, and seeing whether it's overreacting, if it's telling you the truth, and stuff like that.
Indeed. You're right about that too, Wally.
Absolutely.
Everybody's journey is so dramatically different. Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest, like I said last week, that was one of the biggest challenges that I had when I first started stepping into this space, because I recognized that everybody's journey was different. And I wanted to be able to show up to people. So I often use the example of like Weight Watchers. It's like, I didn't want my program to be, or our coaching to be like a Weight Watchers program where it's like, okay, we're going to go through this, and this, and just check the boxes. It's like, how do we meet that person where they are and help them come to figure out the answers to the questions that need to be asked.
Yeah, for them. And each program is tailored differently for each individual. That's why this space is so dramatically different for everyone. Meaning, unlike the organization where it's just a group think, everybody thinks the same thing. It's an echo chamber. So that's the word the phrase I was looking for. In this, people are so dramatically different and all over the place, and that's okay. I love that about it, actually.
Yep, absolutely. You're right on, Wally.
Yeah. So we're just to throw that out there, Wally. We moved to North Carolina a year ago. I don't want to go down that route. It's not to change the subject, but since I already did, we moved from Kent, Washington. So we know a lot of people that you know.
Yep.
And you should accept my friend request, by the way, since I got you there.
John, behave. Please behave.
Just messing.
So any other questions or thoughts? Here's Ruby.
Hey guys, just a quick question, because I saw Tony's comment earlier, and I kind of agree with her when she says she suffered from being zapped. But also about the pattern of looping. When she says, I feel like it's to help you understand what's going on and why. You know, it's like you're trying to figure out why that happened. So your brain keeps replaying the traumatic experience or the conversation or the argument, what you could have done better, what you could have said, what you did, what you didn't do. And I kind of feel the same way. It's like, how do we know when we're in that loop in a negative way or in a positive way where we're trying to make sense of a situation?
I think part of it is to make sure that you're asking questions. Because if you're just looping, if it's just the loop and just the loop and loop and loop and loop, is you're not stopping it. The biggest thing when you get into that zapping and the looping is figuring out how to stop it so that you can make sure that it's not just stuck on replay. You're actually going to be you're able to redirect and take steps forward. Because if you're staying in the loop, that's where you're staying. You're staying on that hamster wheel. And so your brain might be trying to figure it out, but you need to interrupt that with questions so that, find out if it's really true, or if you are if you're hurting yourself by the types of things that you're saying, and interrupting it so that you can actually figure out those steps to take forward.
Yeah. Hi guys. How you doing? It's good to see your lovely faces tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, I mean, this is a really, really good topic, and I missed the beginning, but I went back and I took some screenshots because I'm keeping that for for personal use later. But I don't know. I just feel like I like it really resonated with me, everything that was said there, like the zooming in. So the first one is zooming in. And I guess, can you elaborate a little bit on that? Like, what do you mean when zooming in? Like, what is what?
You want me to?
Oh.
Well,
is it like the situation?
Well, to go back to,
or is it yeah?
So when something happens, a look, a tone, a comment from somebody, and it kind of feels like the world just narrows in on you, and your brain locks in on it. So you're zooming in. You're zooming in.
Yes.
Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters except that one thing, right? In the moment, and whether you realize it or not, your nervous system is trying to protect you. Everything else kind of fades away, and it's like a tunnel vision, emotional and mental.
Yes.
And it's just what your brain does to what it's trained to do, and that's defend. So, but it's not the same as living. It feels, it kind of feels like control, being in a cage. Suddenly the one thing becomes the whole story.
Yeah.
And you start to feel panic.
Yeah. So Tony, I'm not going to go into details, but so do you remember the conversation that you and I had a couple of weeks ago?
Yes.
That you zoomed in, right?
Yes, I did.
So what we did through that, what our conversation and the actions that we did, we disrupted that Zoom.
Yes. But I guess, how I guess eventually when you practice it enough, it will be an automatic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, indeed.
So I
Yeah.
guess I'm still in the beginning stages, but yeah, I see now what you mean. It's also I don't know how to explain it, but I realize it could, like you said, it could be the tone, it could be a look, it could be a word that was used, the way they used it, the way they said it. It's like certain things I'm like very in tune to a lot of things. Maybe it's not it's actually it's hurting me more than
Mhm.
helping, you know, because I'm so in tune to a lot of things, and then my brain goes on the pattern loop.
Mhm.
Oh, indeed.
Like yeah, and it's a really bad loop because like you guys were saying, it could get to a point where you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And that's where it affects you emotionally, mentally, and then physically, because you can't hold that in. You're going to end up showing it.
Yep.
So I guess now that I'm listening to you guys and actually like paying attention and like processing it, for me it takes a little while sometimes. Like I have to really I have to hear it multiple times. Like just like you said, we went through something with, like, I called you, you helped me with a situation before, but this is actually helping me understand what you were saying.
Oh, good.
The explanation, the PowerPoint, like I'm a visual person, so I have to see things, but then at the same time I'm also hands-on, so I have to put it into work and practice for it to stay stuck in my head, you know? But yeah, I guess I've never really understood it this way, so it's helping me. It helps me to understand myself better.
Wow.
That's the goal. That is absolutely the goal.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because I mean you have to understand yourself in order to grow and in order to get to those next levels and stuff. So so I'm glad that helped like connect the dots. And so I'm going to do a little quick plug too. If anybody would like to have some one-on-one time with John, there is links on our Deservingly You channel. So a lot of you guys have logged in through Fixing My Faith or through Ruby's channel. But if you come to Deservingly You, our links are on there, where you can meet up with John or me and get on our calendar and stuff, and we'd be happy to take you through a session. And that's at no cost. Yes, this is we saw, you know, it's like we experienced it being in that high controlled environment. We experienced it. We do understand it, and we've been able to get out, and we want to be able to help people, and that's why we're doing this. So so don't hesitate to reach out. And if you decide you want to move on with us, great. If not, that's fine too. But ultimately, we want to be able to help. So,
definitely.
So,
I wanted to say something, King Tony, before we get too far away from it. It was just based on what you mentioned a minute ago, is that you become aware of many things, and you're no longer just being aware of certain aspects of your behavior, your thought patterns, and the way you process information is huge. I mean, because until somebody enters that gate of awareness, they're blind. I don't think that's no secret to most of us, but just stepping over that hump is tremendous, because then you're able to grow and move and gain momentum. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. So, like, this kind of goes along with what King Tony was, what we were talking about with King Tony too. Is you don't have to have it all figured out. It's just taking that next aligned step, and it takes practice. It takes practice to start doing this, and it makes a difference. And this week, like we said, try to notice when you might be doing ZAPS, or how you're responding. Are you responding with ZAPS, or are you taking the time to take a break, take a breath, and paying attention to the way that you're reacting and the way that you're responding. So we appreciate all of you guys showing up. Thank you so much. And Wally, it's nice to finally get connected with you. Once you realize the connections that we have, Wally, you'll be I can see you having one of those little cartoon things on your video with the mind blown.
Yeah.
So, we've got that kind of connection. So looking forward to being able to connect further. So
indeed. Yeah. Thank you all, everyone.
Thank you all. So with that, we will call it an evening, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Hopefully